What's up guys, Karaba here with another Handy Hubby segment as part of our YouTube channel where I do crafty or hands-on projects all at the bidding of my wife. Today we've got a really fun project, and that is, it's a simple one. And the simple ones I think are the most fun because you can do them over and over and over again and it's no problem. So years ago when my wife first moved to Chicago, which is where we live, she bought, I think, just a simple IKEA kind of like TV tray or like side stand. It looks something kind of like this. So it's just an all wood stand that's folding. It can retract down to like nothing here, so it like folds down. So if you want to put it underneath the couch or you want to do whatever, you can just like, there we go. So you can fold up like this. Obviously, it's kind of had its day, I will say that. So you can see it's kind of like miscolored here on the front. Now, a big part of that, honestly, is when we first moved into this apartment, we started putting it out on our porch. And we knew that, okay, yeah, it's kind of gonna like get a beating from the elements and the hot to cold, right? Obviously, we'd bring it in for the winter. We wouldn't leave that out there. But Allison recently has a desire to use it again. Hey, what are you doing? What do you do with the cats? Jeez. So what my objective is today is to take this kind of older looking piece of furniture and make it match a lot of our current furniture. So I went down to Ace Hardware a little bit earlier today and I picked up a couple sanding blocks. So you can get sandpaper or sanding blocks. I like the blocks just because they're easier to handle with. You can get the different types of grit, right? So how aggressive they are. Normally they'll have numbers on them, so I got a 60 and a 180 because of the 60 is going to be used to take the finish off. So when you're going to restain something like this, like I am, it's really important to get all the surface areas. So you get all the gunk off there. You're going to want to get any finish that used to be on here because this table used to have finish on it. And just through the elements, it's kind of been beaten up a little bit. So we need to bring that back. And then the 180 grit is gonna kind of sand it out. So get it totally fine, ready to go until we're ready to put the stain on it. At the hardware store, I went and picked up just some mid-wax wood finish. I've used mid-wax in the past for stuff that we've done, and they do a really good job, so we're gonna stick with that. This is the ebony color. So I think at IKEA, which is some of the furniture pieces that we have, I know we haven't grown up yet, but they call it espresso. Ebony is pretty close, like the min-wax version. So we're gonna give it a shot. It is pretty close just based on their drawing on the front. So we're gonna go ahead and get after it. So the first thing we're gonna do is open up our 60 grit sand block, and you should sand every little nook, cranny, everything on this because you can still see remnants of some of that stain that's in here. We wanna get all of that off. Always remember, or at least what I try to do, is always sand with the grain, because if you scratch against the grain, when you apply that stain, it's gonna go into those grooves. So always remember, sand with the grain of the wood. Generally by the discoloration of the wood, once you get it sanded down, you can kind of tell the areas that you've hit and then the areas that you still need to hit. If you have some problem areas where there's kind of a lot of stain on the wood, one thing that I would suggest is just really make sure you're sanding that down, because once you put that stain on and that seal, if you're gonna seal it as well, it's locked in there. So any coloration or miscoloration that you don't want in there, be sure to get out. All right, so I got the whole thing kind of sanded, touched up with the 60 grit down, pretty much everywhere where there was any finish whatsoever. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do now is I'm actually not gonna take this whole thing apart. But in this case, I'm just gonna unscrew this top portion from the legs. And there's just two little screws here that hold on the track, this little track bar here. It's just super simple, comes right off. Be sure not to strip out any of the screws, because then once you take that little bar off, then these can come right off just with two more screws. I remember when I was a kid, I used to like to take apart like engines and take apart different things, especially just to challenge myself if I could bring it back together. The funny thing about this piece of furniture right here is we don't have any of the instructions from IKEA anymore. So put it this way, if I wasn't able to figure this out, then it would pretty much stay in a broken state of things. Alright, so now we'll put this piece off to the side. And so now we're left with the back side of the board. What I'm just going to do is just touch up those spots that had the board screwed on there really fast. Get a little even. This allows us to get a little bit more grit on there. And then what we're going to do is hit it with the fine sand block. So the fine sander is going to make this pretty much ready for finish. It's going to make a lot of that sanding that we did earlier nice and even. Again, going with the grain of the board. Now this next part is really important. So there's a lot of sawdust on this thing. And so you're gonna wanna take a cheesecloth or a microfiber rag and you're gonna wanna try to clean a lot of that sawdust off there. Don't get it wet, because we don't wanna do that, but try to get a lot of that sawdust off. All right, now that we got our board completely cleaned off, we've got the coloration that we want as best as it's gonna get. We've got some knots in here that are gonna come through really nice. We can go ahead and get our stain ready to go. But what you need is obviously like a screwdriver or something to open your stain can. But then also you need an applicator. You can use kind of the lamb's wool applicators. I just use the sponges with the microfiber outside. They're really cheap. You can get them for like $1 or $2. Now you take your applicator, and I always just kind of give it a quick little fold and just dunk just a little edge on it in there. So you can see you got a lot of stain on the applicator. And then from here, we're looking for long, even strokes. So even, that is key. So we're just gonna come here, long, even strokes. You'll notice, especially with this wood right here, like already, just since what I've put on there, and it's been maybe 10 seconds, this wood is soaking that up because it's mostly so dry, just from the conditions it's been in already. So just be mindful of that when you're applying this. I like to always err on the side of, evenly, lightly coating, because I can always put more. I don't want to get into a situation where I've applied too much stain and now I'm starting to compensate for the too much color on the board. We can go ahead and get a little bit more stain. Since this one soaks up so quickly, we can go kind of fast here. And again, those long, even strokes. Long, even strokes, that's the key. Once I get this side exactly where I want it, only at that point am I gonna move to the other side. In other projects that I've done, I'm kind of a fan of getting all the staining done at once, but you really are gonna wanna make sure that this is drying to exactly the way you want it and is looking the way you want it before you move on to anything else, since the stain is pretty much the whole point of this project. Now you're gonna wanna make sure that you're allowing time to dry in between each coat, because that's what's allowing that wood to soak it up. Think about it just like anything, where it's just taking time to soak in, and then you can apply a little bit more and it'll soak that in, each time getting a little darker and a little more dark. So we can see already, it's still a little damp, but already look how much more dark this wood is now than when we started. Just for reference, I can go ahead and show you this piece of wood here and contrast it to the piece that we took off earlier. Much different. Holy cow, look at that difference. So you're gonna want to allow this to dry for, I would say, at least like 15 to 30 minutes in between each coat. You're really gonna wanna make sure that the existing coat soaks into the wood before you apply any more. But stop. Any self-respecting Handy Hubby checks in with the wife in between the project completion timeline. So what I mean by that is I said, hey, are you sure this is exactly what you want, right, babe? And in true form, there was a mind change. So, stop what we're doing. The only thing that we're doing different is the legs that we're gonna do is actually, we're gonna keep those the existing color, so the lighter wood with the top to match the rest of the furniture. Reason for that change, I don't ask questions. I'm just the hubby, right? But what I do know is I listen to my wife when she tells me what to do. Even though there wasn't any stain on those legs, that's okay. We didn't have to worry about sanding them or anything. They are fine just the way they are, but we're just gonna put them right back on to the top once the top gets the final amount of stain, and once that dries, we'll screw everything back together. All right, so I've put like about 3 or 4 coats on here and checked in with Allison, and this is kind of exactly what she's looking for. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna let this sit for quite a while. So I'm gonna seal up all of my stuff, clean up all of my things, and just basically let this dry. I got a little fan off to the side here. It's just lightly blowing a breeze. You don't wanna like get a blow dryer out. The other thing that's really important to know is that you do not want to touch this. Like, don't say, ooh, I wonder if it's dry, scrape my finger. Because if it's not, you will pick up the finish and it will change the total finish of the whole surface. So do not do that. Just to show you what this is looking like now, it's actually looking really nice for what we want. And so all we're gonna do is let this sit for a couple hours. We wanna make sure it's definitely good to go, and then I'll come back to you here in a little bit. All right, so it's been about 2.5 hours. We let this dry. I actually kind of ran out of light, but this is pretty much dry now. So what we're gonna wanna make sure we're gonna do is put this on like maybe a towel or something, so just in case nothing like scratches into the new finish, just because it probably needs like at least 24 hours to be like totally set. So we flipped it over, and so per my wife's request, we did not stain this other side. So you can see there's like a little bit of stain kind of built up and dripped over on the other side. In this case, that's not gonna be a problem. So we're gonna go ahead and fix the legs back onto the bottom. You gotta make sure that you get everything kind of lined up here, because if you remember, there were screw holes in here, so we just gotta make sure everything lines up the way we like it. All right, so now we've got all 6 of the screws screwed back in to the bottom securely and tightly. So all we have to do now is put that guider track for the legs back on, and we should be about finished. So now the finished top looks something like that. We've got our legs still in the old color, the way Allison wanted it, new tabletop and the new color. And so now we just gotta bring her in and see what she thinks. So what do you think of your new table?
It's beautiful. I like the different color tones.
So that was refinishing the table. It's super easy, guys. Like, I made this video not because it's something difficult or something because I think I'm really good at it. It's that sometimes refinishing something is sort of intimidating, and sometimes we think like, oh, we'll just get a new one, we'll throw that out. Don't do that. You can refinish something really simple in a couple hours for only a couple bucks. I think I got all of this stuff at Ace Hardware for around like $20. So, and I actually bought like way too much stain. I want to keep the rest of it for later projects. So probably cost you even less than that. So thanks a lot, guys. This is River Karaba, part of Handy Hubby, which is part of our channel here. Be sure to check out our vlogs. So if you are interested, Allison and I vlog every single day. We're daily vloggers, so you can go ahead and click up in the corner over there, or is it over here? No, it's over there. Check that out. You can subscribe to us, follow us every single day, and be sure to check us out on our social media links in the description below. Thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you later.